So I want to say a few words about Hazon's pedagogy in relationship to Jewish tradition and teaching Jewish text. I feel that there is a distinction between what, for argument's sake and in this context, I'm going to call teaching text in a closed way and teaching it in an open way. And both of those things are generalizations, and I accept that. For me, the tension between the two is brought out by comparing Bal Tashchit with Shemitah. Bal Tashchit is a fairly obscure concept in Jewish tradition, which is about not wasting. It derives from Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, where it says, if in a time of war you are laying siege to a city, you shouldn't cut down fruit-bearing trees. And the rabbis expand that in all sorts of directions. There is a generation of Jewish environmentalists who have taught Bal Tashchit as a fundamental grounding of contemporary Jewish environmental ethics. But personally, in 15 years, I've actually never taught Bal Tashchit, and in general, Hazon hasn't in a significant way. And it's for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm not completely sure that Bal Tashchit means what we say it means. I'm not sure that for an observant halachic Jew who is learned and traces it through, it is necessarily a foundation for a contemporary environmental ethic. Secondly, the overwhelming majority of Jewish people today are not halachically observant. If I'm sufficiently not Jewishly observant that I don't keep Shabbat or I don't keep kosher, each of them central to Jewish tradition, then why should I care about this obscure piece of Jewish tradition? But there is a final reason that I don't love Bal Tashchit, and it's simply this. I feel at some level what we're doing with Bal Tashchit is essentially banging people over the head and saying, see, Jewish tradition teaches you shouldn't waste, you shouldn't waste. And I'm not persuaded pedagogically that you can go very far with that. That's what I mean by closed. It's not a question, it's an answer. Shemitah, by contrast, to me, is a whole series of questions. And one of the reasons as an organisation that we have taught about Shemitah over the last 7 years is that on the one hand it is a central piece of Jewish tradition. It very, very clearly does connect to a series of issues and questions in contemporary life that are incredibly salient. The question of how do we distinguish between those who have more and those who have less, and what are our obligations, and what are the boundaries, and how do we let go of things, and what about debt, and how much debt is good, and how do you let go of debt, and what's our relationship to time. When I give these examples of questions that arise from Shemitah, I'm not being rhetorical. These are questions for me personally. These are things that I'm trying to figure out. These are things where I can actually read the same text 10 times and actually unravel in 10 different directions on each occasion. And so my hope going forwards for anybody who happens to be watching this, I love Jewish tradition. I think that Jewish tradition is incredibly wise. I think that it is incredibly relevant. And I think the heart of allowing that wisdom to come to life is genuinely to treat the tradition with respect, which in turn means assuming that there is value in it and genuinely asking questions. If we feel that we know the answer to a particular question, it may not be that good of a question in the first place.